Okay, I'm going to continue on sort of introducing a few more of the key organs that are found in the endocrine system. And the way I'm going to set this up is we'll go over kind of the basics of each of these endocrine organs, and then in class we'll look at them in a little more detail in terms of the kinds of hormones they make and the interactions those hormones have, what kind of impacts they have on the body, and maybe in a couple of cases we'll look at one or two examples of diseases where that impact those organs. So we're going to talk on this time very briefly about the gonads as endocrine organs, what the thymus is all about, and a little bit about the pineal gland. First, I'm going to talk about the gonads. And what I want to remind you about the gonads is that they're unique among endocrine organs in that not only do they have the ability to manufacture hormones and thus be considered an endocrine tissue, they also are considered exocrine glands, meaning that they produce a product that is secreted into a duct. Now, the pancreas is also capable of producing both endocrine and exocrine products, and we'll discuss that later. For now, though, let's talk about the gonads and look at what types of products they secrete that are endocrine products and what kind of products they manufacture that are exocrine products. So let's start with exocrine products. And if we look at the gonads, remember the two principal gonadal tissues are the ovaries in females, the testes in males. So here's the ovary up here, testes down here, and some histological preps of each of those tissues. In terms of exocrine products, the ovaries manufacture oocytes, which is the term used to describe a mature egg cell. And that egg cell is then released into an opening and funneled then into something called the fallopian tube or the uterine tube. The testes manufacture the exocrine product called sperm or spermatocytes, and these are then released into a tube-like structure called the seminiferous tubule, and here's the lumen of that tubule. Here is a seminiferous tubule, and if you were able to see really up close, you'd see there were tiny little sperm cells right there. Those are released into the seminiferous tubule. So in both of these cases, and up here in the ovary, here's the egg right here, and it would be released from the ovary. In both of these cases, we are releasing a product into some sort of duct or opening. Therefore, by definition, it is an exocrine product. Now, of course, both the ovaries and the testes also are known to manufacture sex hormones. The ovaries manufacture estrogen, as just an example. The testes manufacture testosterone, as just an example. Both of these also manufacture other hormones as well. I'm just picking one to use as an example. These are called gonadal hormones, and we're not going to spend much time talking about them because when we get to talking about the reproductive system in 202, we'll have plenty of time to go over these gonadal hormones in more detail. For now, we're just going to remind you that the gonads have both exocrine and endocrine properties. So next up is the thymus. And the thymus is a very interesting organ. It's one that a lot of people aren't very familiar with, but it's located immediately superior to the heart, and it's kind of nestled in between the lungs in a region of the body called the mediastinum. And here is the thymus right here. So you can see it sits superior to the heart, kind of in between the two lungs, and it has a unique characteristic to it in that it has the ability to undergo involution. Involution means that a particular organ shrinks over time. So as you age, it gets smaller and smaller. If you look at a really young child and you examine the size of the thymus relative, for example, to the size of the heart and the lungs, the thymus is very large. As we age, it gets smaller and smaller until in people who are very old, the thymus is very small in size and is principally replaced almost entirely by adipose tissue. The purpose of the thymus gland, its main job, is to manufacture and secrete a very important hormone called thymopoietin. Thymopoietin is a hormone that is critical for the proper development and maturation of a special type of white blood cell called a T lymphocyte. When we get to learning about the immune system, we'll return to the topic of T lymphocytes and learn what specifically their role is in the body. But for now, just know that the thymus secretes thymopoietin. This thymopoietin helps T lymphocytes, which are present in the thymus, to develop and mature so that they are fully functional. If an individual is born without a functional thymus or with a thymus with reduced function, it means that they have their ability to manufacture functional T lymphocytes is greatly reduced or eliminated, and as a result, their immune system is severely compromised. Last one I'm going to talk about very briefly is the pineal gland, or the pineal gland, depending on who you talk to. And the pineal gland, or pineal gland, is a gland that we learned about briefly once again when we were learning about the central nervous system. It's located right back here, kind of near the, more towards the caudal end, or the dorsal end of the brain. It's a tiny little piece of tissue located behind the thalamus and immediately superior to the third ventricle. Remember, the third ventricle is one of the places where we store cerebrospinal fluid to give the brain buoyancy. And the purpose of the pineal gland is to manufacture a couple of different hormones, one of which is called serotonin, which is a hormone that's implicated in all kinds of things from appetite to mood, etc. Now, serotonin, as you'll remember, is an example of a hormone that is a biogenic amine, and it is manufactured from tryptophan. If I take tryptophan, which by the way is in really high levels in things like turkey meat, I can convert that tryptophan into serotonin if I have the right enzymes, and then I can convert that serotonin into a second hormone called melatonin. Don't confuse this with melanin. Melanin is that pigmented molecule found in the skin to protect against DNA mutation with exposure to ultraviolet radiation. This is melatonin. Melatonin is a hormone that's implicated in helping you maintain your circadian rhythms. It's the molecule that induces a feeling of sleepiness as you get closer to darkness, okay? When it gets dark out, melatonin levels in your body climb to 10 times what they were when the sunshine was still out. So they induce a feeling of sleepiness and allow you to get to sleep. What's interesting about the pineal gland is that it, like the thymus, has the ability to involute, meaning that as we get older, it shrinks in size. And this is a big part of the explanation why people, as they age, don't sleep as long. Their pineal gland, as they age, involutes. It shrinks in size, which means they have less melatonin present in their body, so they have a more difficult time falling asleep and staying asleep. So melatonin secreted from the pineal gland is important for maintaining circadian rhythms, or your wake and sleep patterns. It also possibly, we think, might have some sort of an impact on sexual maturation, the timing of sexual maturation. And scientists think that because they notice that particularly in young boys, if they have damage to their pineal glands, say because of some sort of traumatic brain injury, they oftentimes begin undergoing sexual maturation at a much younger age than is normal. So there's conjecture that the pineal gland is somehow important in determining the timing or the beginning of sexual maturation. All right, that's all for these three organs. Next up, we'll be talking about the thyroid and parathyroid.